Good afternoon. I was just saying that after lunch, we always get a bit sleepy, so I hope that you do not fall asleep. My name is Liliana Pawłowa, and it is my pleasure and honor to be taking part in this forum, which has become key in our region as a venue for debate and exchange of views. I'm very grateful to the whole team of organizers. First of all, Ms. Monika Stanisheva. She's indeed the engine behind this event. I would like to thank Maria and Sergei and the rest of the team. I was involved in organizing the Bulgarian presidency of the Council, so I know how difficult it is to manage such a huge event on such a large scale, convening so many people together. And in this case, it's a private initiative, so that makes it even more challenging. Hats off to the organizers. Where are we today? Well, we had a lot of different perspectives, lots of different views. I'm not going to repeat what was just said, but we are at a turning point from a geopolitical, from an economic point of view. The environmental aspect is also, of course, crucial. There might still be skeptics, but we already see climate change in our daily life. So we are faced with a huge challenge in a very insecure world, a world of geopolitical challenges. We need to protect our independence and increase our competitiveness. We need to attract private capital and also work on developing our security capabilities, in all its aspects. We were used to live in peace in Europe, and we were taking a lot for granted, but nothing should be taken for granted any longer. I would like to thank the panelists for taking the time to participate today in the debate. We'll be discussing how we unlock Europe's potential, how to attract private capital, how we can use both public institutions and the business so that Bulgaria and the entire region is not seen as the periphery of Europe. We need to take advantage of all that's available to us, funds, instruments, etc. And these are indeed there. We should probably make better use of them. We heard the word inclusivity yesterday reiterated a number of times, and that's really important because at the heart of it all are the people. Europe is not all talking about the clean industry pact, the New Deal. It's not a Green Deal anymore that is the focus of attention, but we're talking sleeping capital, AI, trade wars. All this is part of the background, part of the context, alongside other challenges. So we have to see where we're going and how we're going to navigate this difficult situation. so that we really increase our competitiveness. So we're talking a vision, a strategy for Bulgaria, Bulgaria 2050. So I'm hoping that today will not focus only on problems, but we'll be also discussing possible solutions and the steps that need to be taken. I would like to introduce the panelists, and with them we'll be discussing unlocking private equity, but also making the best possible use of all that's available as opportunities so that we achieve the greatest possible impact. We'll talk also about Eurozone accession as yet another opportunity to unlock our potential, the potential that we believe we have here in the region and in Bulgaria in particular. I would start introductions with Mr. Delian Dobrev. He is chairman of the Committee on Energy in the 49th National Assembly, former Minister of Energy, of the Economy and Tourism. He has been involved in launching some very important instruments that we have been talking about, like Jeremy, which have been further developed over the years. Mr. Dobrev will have to leave early, so we'll start with him and the questions for him. We have also Iliana Tsanova, Deputy Director General of DG Budget at the EC. She is not joining us here, but Ms. Sukova is still with us, who is the Deputy Director General of DG Employment. She has a lot of expertise and experience, having worked for EU institutions for quite a long time now. She'll be talking perhaps about the investment model that we need and how we can include employment into all that. Mr. Danowski, again, somebody with lots of expertise, having headed the Ministry of Innovation and Growth of the Republic of Bulgaria as Deputy Minister, but also having held other key positions. I'm particularly grateful to Ms. Marina Petrova from the Bulgarian National Bank, somebody who has been actively working on our Eurozone accession, a lot of experience when it comes to convergence. She is a senior advisor currently at the Bulgarian National Bank, so I hope that she'll be able to tell us more about what will happen once we have joined the Eurozone. And the rest of the panelists, Ms. Manuela Nasi from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, a bank that supports the private sector in particular. And last but not least, Pavel Nierade, former member of the governing board of the Polish National Bank and also former member of the supervisory board of the 3Cs initiative. So we hope to hear from him about dual-use infrastructures and investment in that, and how we can mobilize growth and use to the best the advantages of our region. And I'm sorry, but yes, of course, we have Mr. Borislav Bangev, Director Corporate and member of the Management Board of UniCredit Bank, He's got more than 20 years of experience in the banking sector. So we'll be talking about commercial banks and the instruments that are on offer. We have a lot that is available, but there isn't perhaps enough demand, not enough appetite. So we'll see if we have enough projects. And we should probably also debunk some myths about unlocking capitals and channeling those resources. So, Mr. Dobrev, thank you for being with us. What is your view on the way the government, the state, through its institutions, can support and encourage economic growth and improving competitiveness, having in mind the geopolitical context and the new investment policies of the EU? Are we ready for reform and deregulation?
Mrs. Pavlova, you've asked the $1 million question. Have pity on me. Allow me to first of all thank the organizers for the invitation and to congratulate them on organizing this conference with such a great deal of professionalism. The event keeps growing better and better each year. The government is limited in what it can do, particularly in recent years. We have had a very large social welfare bill, and unfortunately we don't have as much money as we'd like to invest. This is why it's important to do things hand in hand with private capital, with banks, so that they can invest in the economy and promote and fuel its further development. It sounds easy, but it's not, because on the one hand we have to overcome a certain legacy understanding, such as, for example, concessions being a dirty word, but the latest amendments to the concession have actually changed this situation radically. Even Sofia Airport is a case in point. We are now even planning a new terminal, a new runway. So this is how concessions should work. However, pay attention, the new act does not simply give an asset to a private party so that it can make money. It guarantees a certain rate of return to the private party, but then introduces the profit sharing model so that the government, the state, can also benefit from the successful development of a business project. And this model can be used in order to attract private capital, banks, financial institutions, funds, and God knows we have plenty of good examples in Bulgaria. We need 4 new pumped storage stations. Chaira has been out of operation for I don't know how long now, and we have 3 that are currently waiting for the government to decide what to do. If we wait on the government or wait for the government to build these 4 new pumped storage stations, this will take another 30, 40, 50 years. If we introduce and roll out the principle of PPPs, maybe we'll end up with huge installed capacity, with a huge green battery here on the Balkans and in Europe. No one else will have such a great balancing capacity. Another issue that I get a lot. Why don't we still have multi-funds? We will have multi-funds. We will adopt the pension and social insurance code. The amendments are pending. They will be tabled and will receive support in Parliament. The multi-fund model is also a recommendation for Bulgaria's accession to the OECD, and hopefully on the 1st of January, Bulgaria will be a member of the Eurozone, but we are also taking steps to ensure that we also join the OECD. Several weeks ago, the Parliament enacted legislation to enhance our legislation on combating money laundering. We have other steps to take in order to fulfill and implement all recommendations that we've received, because the OECD an equally worthy undertaking and ambition. But we need to take political responsibility and say that public-private partnerships are not a dirty word. We will be able to implement this model to highways, to pump storage stations, to other forms of infrastructure, and then our investments in the economy will not be limited to several paltry billions that the government can pay. We will have a much broader range of opportunities available to us. Thank you for this answer. The question was, yes, when will this reform happen? Because it will unlock a significant resource which can be used to finance worthy initiatives. Public-private partnerships have been on the back burner for many years. Concessions, even loans from EIB, from EBRD, governments tended to regard this as anathema. Whereas now, I think the tide is turning and we should start looking at this as an investment opportunity. And the next step, as you've correctly mentioned, is acceding to the OECD. But let us first join the Eurozone. This is a very important condition which will ensure that we can attract further investment, refinancing. Of course, we have to continue to follow a policy of, strict financial discipline to ensure sustainability at the level of the budget. But we should also successfully, reduce red tape and take a number of other steps to improve the business climate. What can the Parliament do in this respect to lower red tape, to promote and enable meaningful investments? You're asking another excellent question. We again have positive examples which show that when we reduce red tape or eliminate red tape, positive effects follow very soon in the energy sector. Which, of course, is where I've spent most of my professional life, offers a number of positive examples. There are hundreds of owners and plants that produce electricity from solar power. So starting from the smallest systems to the largest systems, we have tens of thousands of investors. And if you look at the prices of electricity, yesterday it was precisely zero. Why? Because there's a great deal of supply. On the one hand, society wins. On the other hand, of course, investors win, because the government enables them to invest their own money. There are investors who have 10,000 in their back pocket. There are others who have 10 million. In other words, we have investors with very different profiles. We continue our work to improve the opportunities for investments. But, this is a real opportunity for investors to receive a passive income because they don't have workers, because they don't have to worry about raw materials. There's only one raw material, and it shines brightly out of the sky 240 days each year. So the benefits are there for everybody, for the government, for society, for investors. In the last 6 months alone, we have seen investments in battery storage capacity mushroom. I said that it is not a good thing to have a price at the same level over, for example, several months. The best situation is to have a price range of plus 700 to minus 200. This is what draws attention from investors. And the carrot was provided by the government in terms of battery storage because we promised to finance projects at the rate of at the rate of 50% for a capacity of up to 10,000 kilowatt hours. And this has engendered the projects with a capacity of 10,000 megawatts hour. I don't know whether this was mentioned yesterday. In the first 10 days of May, there was 100,000 non-generated electricity by plants, because when the price reaches zero, they stop generation. And if we had battery storage, the price would have been 5 lev. The energy would have been stored and would have been sold during the evening peak at 400 lev, putting downward pressure on the average side of electricity. So the average annual price or daily price will eventually become lower. So investment is good for everybody, and this is the reason why we should try to attract as much investment as possible. And this is the answer to your question: how will the government continue against the backdrop of increasing social welfare expenditure? Will continue to meet the Maastricht criteria.
Thank you very much. I know that you only have a couple of minutes before you need to go. And we'll continue discussing this topic with Ms. Sokova. But we saw and we see that when political stability is lacking, we're unable to carry out the reforms that need to be carried out, and funding is not being utilized. The money for reform model is becoming pivotal in terms of the next annual financial framework as well. So should we expect more mixed financing, attracting equity and other instruments rather than what we have been using so far? In Bulgaria, we tend to be too self-critical. We blame ourselves for not conducting the necessary reforms, that we're lagging behind, but this is not quite so. Let me give the same example with the battery installation. We did it more quickly than it happens. For example, in Germany, there it takes 3 to 4 years. Here it's half a year. So we are certainly not so much behind the others. Things have been happening, and not just when it comes to batteries. Yes, of course, there are issues. There is a red tape that gets in the way of large projects. together with colleagues, we have been working to make the appeal, to simplify the appeal process so that it is a one-stage rather than a two-stage process. But reforms have been carried out. Everybody talks about reforms at election time, but actually we look quite well from that point of view. Now we turn to the European Commission. What is the new multi-annual financial framework look like? So fewer grants and more money for reform, more result-driven impact initiatives. Is that a new approach? We mentioned the new Competitiveness Fund. It is centralized, working at EU level. Does this mean that countries like Bulgaria, which are slower when it comes to launching projects, would be at a disadvantage? Good afternoon. I'm sorry that I had to take the place of my colleague, but I have a lot of experience in that area anyway. So we don't know what the new multi-annual framework is going to look like. We're going to discuss that at the next council meeting. There'll be debates. We are talking own resources. It is that we support each and every one of our EU level priorities. The Commission will submit the new annual financial framework on the 16th of July. This is when we'll start debates in Parliament as well. The Commission has already announced what principles would underpin the new framework. The budget will be more focused on the pan-European priorities. The structure will be simplified. So far we've had 50 funds, and this is seen as something that complicates the utilization of the EU budget. So the idea is to simplify the structure of the multi-annual financial network, and we also need more sustainability and more flexibility. What we've seen over the years is that there is always the need to amend rules and procedures. So we need this kind of flexibility so that in this relatively long period of 7 years, we're able to make adjustments to the budget. And we also want to be able to assess investments in terms of their sustainability and their impact. In the past couple of days, we heard a lot of the speakers talking about challenges and also the uncertainty that lies ahead. But everybody, I think, agreed that business as usual is not an option, which means that the MFF would have to change as well. We're looking at a more streamlined, more efficient budget with a plan for each and every member state so that we have the share management resources allocated in such a way that they require key reforms and investments aimed at achieving pan-European priorities, as well as a further territorial cohesion within the Union. I would also like to allay any fears that the strengthened cohesion policy and growth policy will be closely related to the inclusion of regions in the development and implementation of plans. The second key element in the MFF, this is the European Competitiveness Fund. Here, action will be both direct and indirect, and it would build an investment capacity aimed at the strategic technological sectors in Europe, including research and development, as well as the projects of pan-European interest. So we have the horizontal elements for each and every project through the Competitiveness Fund, and that means investment in upskilling and reskilling. Nothing can actually happen if we lack qualified labor force. Through the Competitiveness Fund, it will also be possible to reduce a large investment risk and also attract additional financial resource. I would quote Draghi's report, who says that we need 800 billion annually. Well, the European budget cannot ensure that amount, no matter how much we increase it. So it would be necessary to combine funding from the EU budget with private equity. I know that in the previous panel you discussed exactly the sources of such financing and such money. And we also have money directed at the rest of the world, supporting developing countries. This is of strategic interest to the EU, but here we are also looking at simplification. Another important element of the budget is that the rule of law will be a mandatory requirement for access to any kind of funding. We talked about deregulation. It's going to be beneficial to the business. However, when we plan the development of our economy and increase competitiveness, there is a group of people who are more vulnerable, so we will continue within the scope of the funds, which will work through national plans to ensure also a focus on improving basic education, also lifelong learning, improving the active labour market measures, encouraging investment, and the social economy. Well, the social economy itself is an element that has been so far underused, but it's something that creates jobs. Social economy ensures inclusion. It reduces discrepancies and differences, and also creates new products and services. By way of comparison, let me just say that the automotive industry hires 10 million. The social economy can actually do much more than that, twice as much. So through the social economy, we'll be able to provide services that large companies cannot. And finally, support for people who need such support. This support will be provided through social protection, and this would be based on the European social model, which stays as viable as it has always been. Well, that's quite encouraging.
I think your message was very important. The new priorities, including the priority for more security support for the Ukraine defense innovation, these will not be to the detriment or at the expense of competitiveness. And we will continue to work to enhance cohesion, ensure that less developed regions have an opportunity to make up in terms of infrastructure. These things should go in parallel. And allow me to make a comment. Every time I hear that when in the new multi-annual financial framework will work to simplify a process, many years ago, I remember together with you, we participated in a working group that was going to draw up suggestions on simplifying the financial framework. We're still apparently at it, so hopefully we will eventually arrive at our destination. Yes, indeed, the budget during the next programming period will be much simpler, and in terms of territorial and regional cohesion, we will have a simpler framework in order to be able to promote and encourage growth and to somehow help countries bridge the gaps in terms of development. People should become more open to competitiveness, and cohesion should be seen as the two sides of the same coin. Okay, I now turn to the representatives of the Bulgarian government, Mr. Danevsky. Innovation apparently is the key to everything, to competitiveness, to growth, to prosperity. What is Bulgaria doing? How is it adapting its priorities and its competitive advantages? How is it aligning them to the new realities, to the new challenges? How are we going to go forward? Thank you. I would like to believe that we all indeed believe that innovations and innovative entrepreneurial thinking should be at the heart of what we do on a daily basis in the social area, in business. In other words, allow me to, however, first of all say that the ministry I represent has been tasked with a very important and relatively new responsibility, new here in Bulgaria, but also in Europe. We needed to alter how we think about growth. There are key instruments that are available to us that we need to make available to market participants at another level. And as a public agent, we are responsible for innovation policy, investment policy, including policies that concern hydrogen, the space, that we will hardly have the time to touch on now. This is just to clarify the broader context. On the other hand, we shouldn't, just repeating innovation as a mantra. There's no need to go from one extreme to the other. But what we see today, so that we know where we will, when we're headed, is we have stable stagnation in terms of the innovation environment in Bulgaria. What do I mean when I say stable stagnation? In the last 4 to 5 years, simply because we follow the global indexes and we know how Bulgaria is performing vis-a-vis other countries, Bulgaria is at the end of the first one-third of countries. So approximately the 38th place in terms of several indicators. But there is something interesting. There are two large groups of innovation indicators. One group concerns the innovation inputs. In other words, what do the public and private agents put in the pot? And on the basis of this criteria, we are much further behind. We are in the 50th place. But if we look at the outputs we are achieving as an industry, we are in the 25th. We are between the 20th and the 25th place. So our inputs are very low, but our outputs are much better than they should have been. Now, what are we going or plan to do in particular? We are trying to ensure that every instrument available to us, and some of the instruments are regulatory and other instruments are financial. Regulatory means the appropriate policies, the right legislation to promote innovation and investments, as well as the financial instruments. Each of these parameters should be aligned to realities in order to be successfully deployed. But the actual challenge is to focus the instruments, to be able to deploy them more swiftly, and to also be able to make to ensure that they're easy to use. Bulgaria is still strongly reliant on shared European funds in order to invest in its R&D and innovation and digitalization sectors, and this is not something to be proud of. In terms of innovation, we should clearly realize that many instruments are available to us, and Bulgaria is even piloting some of the instruments during the third programming period. Back in 2007, Bulgaria has been among the top 3 countries in terms of using innovative, at the time, instruments of the European Union. In other words, now the challenge is to make the funds recyclable or revolving, to inject them into businesses, into the urban environment, so that then we get something back, we get a return. To date, we have injected more than 2 billion levs, and we're seeing cascade returns, which we are hoping to reinvest. And this has been taken into account in the design of our plans for the next programming period. So we have experience and we know how to manage this process. We also have an environment that is conducive to knowledge. We continue to invest in 14 competency and excellence centers, 11 research universities, more than 10 digital and information hubs, Sofia Tech Park inside as part of the AI infrastructure. And this infrastructure should shift its focus to innovation. And the key is the transfer, is technological transfer that is facing businesses in Bulgaria, and we have ambitions to become that unit. Very often we say that innovations in Europe, well, innovations happen in Europe. We know about many ideas, successful ideas, but these face challenges at the stage of commercialization, and then projects leave Europe and migrate to the US. In Europe, we find it very difficult to scale up. Scaling up either doesn't happen or happens with so many conditions attached that it's much simpler to simply up and go to another continent. And here, how do we make sure that innovations stay here and we can scale them up? What you said, the second thing you said, is truly the case. Money never sleeps. The question is whether we have conditions here to accommodate the demands of these businesses. There are money, and then there's money, quick and slow, noisy and silent, depending on the risk appetite. And across most of the range spectrum of attracting capital, we have not been all that successful for several factors, and my colleagues will probably be able to explain this from the point of view of financing of capital, but the system we've been trying to put in place in Bulgaria since 2014 in terms of equity instruments has one major shortcoming, and this is that we have so far failed to attract large strategic venture capital funds. Probably Bulgaria in and of itself is not able to find a solution to this riddle. A part of the solution will be regionalization. Another element will be to change the parameters in terms of what we expect the investments to achieve, and also rethinking our attitude to risk, because private money knows how much risk and where it can take, but public money is an entirely different story.
When we talk about risk management, you have a lot of experience working at UniCredit Bank. So what can we do? What instruments have we got at our disposal? Because we learned that we have the capital available, but how can we keep investment, and how can we attract high-risk investment? Good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank you for the invitation to take part in this panel. I was wondering what the place of a private bank on this panel actually is, but then I figured out that UniCredit Bank is an important institution when it comes to extending loans to the Bulgarian economy and helping it develop. So commercial banks have a key role to play in such discussions. I would not start by explaining what risk is. Yes, commercial banks are private capital, so we can assess risk quite well. But a private bank is still different from a public one. And it has most of the time been quite easy for us to extend a loan. Commercial banks have a high level of liquidity, and we are ready to respond to any demand for loans. You said that Bulgaria should not feel isolated, neither within Europe nor within the region. But it was said that the difference or the deficit in funding innovations in Europe is something like 270 billion compared to the US. So that's quite significant. On the other hand, the Draghi report says that we have to facilitate access to loans for small and medium-sized enterprises. And this is what we at UniCredit Bank do. We have a special program called UniCredit Central and Eastern Europe. It's part of our vision for UniCredit as a bank for the future of Europe. We provide funding on an annual basis to micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, and this is facilitated financing with very much streamlined, with clear conditions, favorable conditions. What is perhaps more important is that the overall program does not only include extending loans. There are two other elements which I believe are more important. One is access to payment services, mostly targeting companies that need to open up to the banking sector. But the third pillar is perhaps the most important one, and that's advisory services. Banking experts try to support enterprises in managing their business models, particularly the business models of the future, those looking towards the medium and short and long-term development. We try to steer enterprises towards sustainable practices and training. We have 400 million euro access that is targeted towards small enterprises. So this is part of the UniCredit for Bulgaria program. Speaking about the advisory services, well, this is the Green Transition Forum. So the transition to more sustainable development is fundamental. We are no longer just advising enterprises and entrepreneurs. Now we have a platform, Skills for Transition. It has been developed together with Accenture. We would like to target the staff of our clients. They need to know what is sustainability, what is artificial intelligence, what are the jobs of the future. So this platform provides not just an overall framework, but also sectoral guidance, in particular in agriculture, logistics, transport. UniCredit has pioneered a lot of different practices. We work with a lot of partners, and I see some of them here. They help us manage risk better. UniCredit Bank was among the best performing institutions, and we took advantage of the program that supported banks to manage risk so that they can unleash capital and channel it towards its clients. I'm not going to get into technical details, but this is what allowed us to get with the European Investment Fund to provide loans at favorable conditions. We were the first, and then two other banks followed us. So this is a way to free up capital so that it can be provided to enterprises that have trouble accessing banking services. And something else that is important, I mentioned our partners. I see some of them. We created something quite innovative, a fairly large PV project but were joined by two other institutions, three Cs, using equity, so together with funding from the EIB. So this project was able to make use of best practices, something that was not common in Bulgaria by that time. We were innovative and we supported enterprises become more competitive. Well, thank you very much. Talking about liquidity, the liquidity that you have ensured, in some cases it's probably too much liquidity that banks provide, so more money and few projects. But we were talking about the letter report and sleeping capital, the huge deposits, 87 billion, if I am not mistaken. So this is money that is not getting invested, and at European level, the amount is mind-boggling. So how can we unlock that money so that it can get invested? Bulgarians are quite cautious because we've been through a lot of crisis. So Bulgarians tend to keep their money in deposits or invest in a real property, but that's another topic. So what should we do in order to unlock this sleeping capital, but also to increase the trust of Bulgarian citizens so that they know that they can invest and there are certain guarantees for their investment? Commercial banks have little they can do in order to influence the investment decisions of their customers. We do as much as we can, and believe me, money doesn't sleep in our banks, even the money in deposits. But the profit is capitalized, so we can use it to extend credit. But very specifically, UniCredit Bull Bank is a leader in terms of its market share of investing in funds. This is quite attractive for the households. Unfortunately, what I don't like is that those funds are mostly Western European or American ones. Yes, Bulgarians are slowly learning, and this is something that we try to do, that is improve financial literacy so that citizens' money can start to really work hard for them. But we heard in the previous panels that the capital market in Bulgaria needs to open up and improve so that the money we have can stay here and generate profit here. As regards enterprises, our role is much more active through advisory services and interventions. You are right that liquidity is high and it's going to increase further. And that's related to our accession to the Eurozone, as we would that the mandatory reserve will shrink. So now we have 12% in Bulgaria, 1% in the Eurozone, probably going up to 2%. So we'll have something like 12 billion released as further liquidity. And this will also have to be channeled productively. Going back to what I was saying, there isn't sufficient demand for loans. And in order to encourage it, we need the right instruments. So I welcome initiatives about public-private partnerships and encouraging concessions to finance important infrastructural projects. Because that money, well, banks will always operate with it. They will probably buy securities. Unfortunately, in Bulgaria, we do not have enough. as our debt is fairly low. So perhaps a better way would be to use, in conjunction with the state and the private sector, the money to finance large infrastructural projects. And I'm sure that banks are ready for that. Yes, you're quite right, Ms. Petrova. Naturally, as in our discussion, we've come to the role of the Bulgarian National Bank within this accession process and our entry into the Eurozone. So we expect to see more investment opportunities. So what's your take on the investment climate and the opportunities that are going to open up? And how is that going to have a positive impact on our competitiveness? Well, thank you. Yesterday and today we are completing a key stage in this process. ECOFIN is going to discuss the Commission recommendation for the accession of Bulgaria. What does this mean for Bulgaria and for the National Bank in particular? Well, it means access to more monetary instruments that are available within the Eurozone. And that would allow commercial banks to reconsider their portfolios and channel resources to a larger spectrum, wider range of projects and different types of investment. As regards to fiscal policy, I don't think anything much is going to change, apart from the fact that fiscal discipline would become even stricter, having in mind the Eurozone procedures. The government will have to focus more on sustainability in its fiscal policies, something that wasn't the case in the past few years. Although our performance compared to other EU countries is quite remarkable. We mentioned credit rating. We expect that it would go up by a step or two once Bulgaria has become part of the Eurozone and introduced the euro. Also, when it comes to transactions, every kind, including paying out remunerations, everything will be in euro, and that would facilitate banks, and it would also accelerate the provision of loans. I try to be brief because I know that we don't have that much time. Yes, just a single question for you. We are talking about central bank's role, including the European Central Bank and its role. How are those banks going to support the capital markets? Because we're saying that capital markets are a key to improved competitiveness. Well, we can go back to basics and the objectives of central banks. And the main function of central banks is to ensure price stability. And derived from that, we have the ancillary functions, for example, to support economic stability and defining economic priorities within the EU. Therefore, through the payment systems, the central bank would be able to support the business to facilitate payments. And then we have also the digital euro project. There are all kinds of different perspectives on it and a lot of debate, but this is also something that can support the development of capital markets all by itself. The fact that we are using the euro as a common EU currency would mean that we'll be going to expand the capital market in that way as well. And the role of ECB and central banks in general is rather more limited than the rest of the banking sector. And maybe a very important message, central banks do not extend loans to cover domestic debt. Yes, indeed. So we have the new Bulgarian National Bank law and also the Treaty 40 of the European Union. So central banks cannot provide direct financing. Thank you.
Indeed, because time is running very fast, I would now like to turn to the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Thank you, Manuela.
Here is of extreme importance for us. From your perspective, what are the most, the most critical investment gaps in Bulgaria? And from your experience in the region, not only in Bulgaria, today we've been discussing a lot to encourage more and investments, public-private partnerships, concessions, crowding in private funding in strategic and infrastructure investment projects. What is your perspective from the perspective of your experience and lessons learned in the region?
Thank you, Liliana, and thank you also to the organizers to have me here today. And these are absolutely important questions. EBRD has just recently also done an assessment of where the gaps are in Bulgaria in terms of financing and where the investment gaps are. And we clearly see, and I think agree with the government, that infrastructure investments in road, rail, green infrastructure, but also in the ICT sector are very key. And another area that we clearly see is that Borislav already mentioned that supporting the SMEs and the value added that they provide in the economy and how they operate is hugely important for the competitiveness of Bulgaria. Finally, we talked a lot about capital and supporting young companies, but I want to come back to previous discussion around skills and the need for upgrading the skills. That's also kind of a sort of investment gap we see, but some that is, of course, across the board important. And hence we should be supporting it. And finally, our topic being, the green transition. I mean, of course, all this infrastructure, all these investments are needed. They should be green. They should be, sustainable for the future. And particular areas that also in Bulgaria are quite needed, I think, are investments in energy efficiency. Because that will make businesses more competitive, reduce household bills, and Bulgaria is still the least energy efficient economy in Europe, and that's why I think this is an important area that will really boost competitiveness. As a bank, and you touched upon the PPPs, we are a bank that wants to support businesses, that wants to work with the government to leverage private capital. And we are actually, I can assure you, leveraging a number of EU instruments for Bulgaria. And I'm clear that Bulgaria is not losing out. There's a lot of instruments available that the government implements or that financial institutions implement together with the government. And we are really trying to reduce risks for businesses that invest in innovative projects. So we have direct InvestEU guarantees for these projects, and some of those Borislav mentioned are in renewable energy, where the market still is developing. Some of those projects are also in the industrial sector, where innovative projects and new technologies, and we heard about how we need to invest in new technologies. So we can use guarantees that the EU provides to leverage and to reduce the risk of these projects, and hence, really catalyze financing and all that money that the banks have into projects. Currently, we have about 700 million of guarantees for EU 11 countries, so that's all Central and Southeast Europe. And we hope that we can catalyze 3 billion of financing with these guarantees. And of course, we're also working with banks to use these guarantees. We also work on equity. So we can also work on companies that need equity to make those important investments, innovation, skills. And I think this is really important because this is a way that Bulgaria and the government can use these financing mechanisms, and we talk about the financial instruments today, that are provided by the current, but also by the future multi-annual financial frameworks to really leverage, and we are kind of partner in that. And my last point about the PPPs, I really liked what, of course, Mr. Dobrev and Mr. Danovsky said, and the PPPs are really important because the government will not be able to invest just budget funds in these key projects. And these key projects are not only important, as I say, to be done, but they will boost competitiveness. They will connect the regions, if it's rail projects. They will reduce energy prices, which are, again, important for competitiveness, so in the pumped hydro storage. But there's also projects that maybe have more an innovative angle. And PPPs are something that we can do, we are supporting, and that need preparation time. And given the ability of institutions like mine to be involved, we can ensure that the risk-reward profile works both for the government, who rightly so wants to also have a benefit from these projects, and it works for the private sector, so that we can finance, get institutional investors, commercial banks, and others to accumulate their funds into the projects, and that these are credible for the future. So I think this is really key, that we make sure that we boost the competitiveness of Bulgaria by accelerating these projects.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, I'm turning back to Pavel. From your experience in 3Cs initiatives, in really attracting private capital for strategic investments and infrastructure, for the region specifically, how we can really mobilize and incentivize such investments, and especially, as we call it, in dual-use infrastructure, to make this, to support both defense and economic resilience.
Thank you very much for this. Thank you again. All the best to the organizers for having me here and in such a well-organized and important event. And then let me also share with you my impression. I have not been in Bulgaria since late 22, and I have to say, when I landed yesterday, I got hugely impressed with the change, with the improvement, and also with the sort of overall vibe, if you like, that is in the air. Which also ties in with what have been said in here, that then Bulgaria, and in particular, but Eastern Europeans or Central Eastern Europeans, we tend to be quite sort of resilient and innovative. The issue I think we have been facing is also what you mentioned, that compared to the global markets, we are relatively small individually. Now, the solution that I think has been around for some time now, but I think is still not really developed to the extent that we would all like to see, is actually working together. Somebody on the previous panel mentioned that alone you can go fast, but together you go further, and that's actually very true. And I have exact example that actually ticks all the boxes of our today's panel. That is, beginning of this year, there was a company established in Poland, registered in Poland, which is called Constellation. it's a telecommunication company that is actually providing independent, secure satellite communication for general public, but also for the military and security services. In particular, they have been offering to these solutions to the Spanish government when the blackout occurred a couple of weeks ago. So nothing worked, but these guys worked. But the point is, they are working with the Bulgarian sat company using Bulgarian satellite for providing the infrastructure and backbone. So I think this is like the exact example how you can actually merge, join forces, to take all our unique qualities, put it together, and then grow and benefit and develop all our countries, all our economies in particular. We also did that when I was still at the Polish Development Bank. We decided to be very involved in this 3Cs initiative idea, and we created together with Bulgarian Development Bank. I see Sanko got to go, but altogether 9 development banks from the 3Cs from the region. We have created the 3Cs Initiative Investment Fund for the very much purposes to make it to create a proof of concept, and of course it was for us to provide a sort of seed capital, but also to attract private and external finance to develop projects that will be focusing on the 3Cs region to benefit from and develop our economies. And I have to say it worked pretty well. The investment equity capital was about 1 billion euro, which was all fully committed to the projects. And they really work pretty well, and if I was the manager, I would probably think about selling them now and sort of reinvesting the money in more. And the point is that it does work. It does work. It's not only that we are talking about it, but especially the sources of capital, the interest from the really big economies for the region is becoming bigger and bigger. Of course, we are probably still not on the plate for the biggest of this world, the BlackRocks of this world. They don't look on Poland. They don't look at really something like trillions of dollars that may be of interest. But still. Another example is during the 3Cs Summit and 3Cs Business Forum that took place in end of April in Warsaw. There was an announcement done by the General Governor of the Japanese Bank for International Cooperation, which is a huge institution doing what the name says, so supporting the development of economic ties between foreign countries and Japan, and they have announced they are opening in January next year. They are opening their office in continental Europe. This is the 3rd office in Europe in the history of the JBIC, and they are opening it. They have an office in Paris, in London, and they are opening the office in Warsaw for the 3Cs region. That means a lot, and of course. When we are talking back about the dual-use infrastructure, I think we have to make the sort of distinction because there is this sort of hard infrastructure like roads or railways or digital infrastructure. It's probably will always be. It will always require bigger involvement of the governments, of the state funding, of the structural funds, this sort of stuff. But then again, you can blend in the private capital, private involvement in creating some particular applications for infrastructure that is actually closely related for that. One example is when you have railroads. You have to have locomotives and carts that will ride on these railroads. And this is actually a big space for getting involved the private capital, private investors, because at the end of the day, private money will always look for the rate of return. Of course, in line with the individual investment profiles and investment needs, but this is what they want to need and what they want to do, and us working together, maybe creating something like the EBRD for the 3Cs region, if you like, will be the moves in the right directions to creating the structures that will offer access to the region, to countries like Bulgaria, like my own Poland, like the Baltic states, like, well, you name it, that will open that and raise the awareness in the investment community, but also for the businesses and the economies between our countries, because I think, I fully believe there's a huge potential. Instead of focusing of becoming the supplier number 1277 to Volkswagen, I think it may be much more interest, much bigger benefit on actually looking just across the border and see of what we can do working together.
Thank you very much, Paolo. It is really encouraging because indeed what we need large-scale infrastructure investments in energy corridors, transport corridors, digital infrastructure, and we need really a combination of capital, of investments, and political will.
Absolutely, and
this
and the coordination is super important, because we can build all the infrastructure we need in Poland. We build the Via Carpatia, which is channeling traffic from the east, back south, and we enter the border with Slovakia, and there is 70 kilometers that to be linked with the highway on the Slovakian border. Yeah? So we can build the 1,000 kilometers of very nice highway, and then the last 5 kilometers is sort of undermining the entire thing.
And unfortunately, we do have some examples of such cases in it. Thank you very much. With this, we are not done with the panel, because we have the pleasure of having special guests in our panel for a so-called Fireside Chat. Tilda Benezra from Carbonair, UK. UK's based platform company, which is really pioneering, I should say, or with extensive experience in mobilizing private finance for sustainable investments and growth. Welcome, Tilda. You are very welcome here, Tilda, because we are really keen to understand from your more than 20 years of experience of navigating in different areas, geographies and environments. Tell us from the perspective of the big picture, what are the enablers of both innovation, but at the same time sustainable investments, which we are discussing today and this week.
Thank you for the...
Yeah,
yes.
It's okay, yeah.
Thank you for the great introduction, and I'm happy to be over here, and this is the first time that I'm here, and for my company, we started recently in the region, so it is great to know more about you and the challenges and the potential solutions that are being discussed over here. And to talk about the business part, I will be touch basing and getting your attention to the core of the sustainability business, which is the carbon credits that I will be talking about. So, for the carbon credits, at the moment, this is becoming a new investment vehicle that we're talking in the market. And on the carbon removal parts, which have been recently, for the couple of last years, that have been more popular and more attractive for the investors rather than the reduction or the avoidance part, it is establishing more. In 2023, the market has been $2 billion. It is expected to be $100 billion in 2030 and to be increasing 750 times in 2050. That means there is a potential for room for new investment vehicles, which I would like to talk about. For example, the streaming model that we're working on. The streaming model is for the carbon, just to give you a brief information, for the carbon removal projects, they are the nature-based and engineer-based solutions which are targeting for the sustainability, reaching the good results. And for the investment of these projects, there needs to be having the investments. So what is being done is the private capital is deployed, and in exchange of the traction, a portion of the high-quality carbon credits are being expected. So we are, as Carbonaires, we are monetizing the carbon credits for the future carbon credits on the behalf of the investors, and we have completed a transaction with UBS Bank last year. Another tool could be offtake backed loans. Yes, this is very traditional, and when we take it onto the carbon market, it is combining, having the offtake agreement between the project developers and the corporate buyers, where in this picture, this is less risky on the investor side and more secure because they are targeting for the future carbon credits. And this trading is being done with the commercial banks. Maybe you will be able to do it here as well. And in this model, there is the intersection with the insurance companies as well. And a third model that I can talk about is the recently World Bank has announced outcome-based bond. Maybe you heard about it. It is the Amazon forestation that they have built up recently, and it is the highest priced one that have announced. Plus, it is the first intersection for first commercial done on carbon removals, and to combining the combining the guaranteed repayment of the investment with the carbon injection is the what the investors are looking for. The investors are highly attracted with the intersection of the securing of the return plus the impact.
And from your perspective, what are the most promising, I should say, carbon removal projects which are, how to say, might dominate our region and might be developed and attractive in the region?
In the region, from the nature-based solutions, we can talk about forestation, reforestation projects. On the technology, on the engineering part, we can talk about biochar, enhanced rock weathering, biogenic carbon capture and storage projects.
And speaking of promoting projects, crowding in investment, do we need special effort, more de-risking instruments, or more different facility? Are we talking about regular standard financial instruments, or more we need to think of blended finance, mix of more guarantees, de-risk solutions?
We're talking about more blended solutions over there. Of course, this is a new market that is being introduced to as the investment. So over there, there should be, for giving more security to the investment, there should be more due diligence to be done. Just like we are doing at Carbonaires, the projects should be reviewed from all aspects of technology, science, finance, policy, environment, social, and all the other aspects. And while we are doing that, we're not only doing internally, but we're partnershiping with, on the science part, with Imperial College. I'm giving examples just for you to do it over here as well. And on the finance part, we are partnering with UBS Bank, where we are the carbon due diligence partners of UBS Bank, and where they are putting another layer to the financing questions over there. And with the technology that we are, technology platform that we're developing, we are doing the digital monitoring of the projects. which is important, how the projects are happening, and if the projects will be having the carbon credits properly. And the last that I can say is the insurance, of course. Combination of the collaborations with insurance companies and developing on project-based how to secure carbon credits is very essential. And of course, not the last one, the policy. The policy to be developed in the country. And it will be opening a lot of doors for everyone on the bank side, on the project developers, on the investment side.
As you said, this is a new market, it is not yet developed. How to make these investments attractive for financing? Because sometimes these type of investments are more considered as to comply with the obligation to have some, rather than considering them that they are attractive, they could boost competitiveness, growth.
Transparency is very important. Due diligence that I mentioned is very important, but not only the due diligence, but also they should be aligned with the Article 6, meaning the policy part, which should be established over here soon as well because of CBAM that is coming and knocking the door right now. And permanence is important. The risk, the financial instruments that are being reviewed are important. And these are the ones, yeah.
As we were saying, these days we do believe we have unique opportunities which we are providing in our region. However, there may be investment barriers or obstacles. From your large experience in different regions, what, from your perspective, are key obstacles on which we need to focus our attention in order to unlock this type of investment?
It is starting with the policy, unfortunately to say, because over there is the need for the countries to identify their mitigation activities and financial needs in line with the NDCs and national decarbonization plans so that the investors can feel themselves better. And the other thing is structural barriers that are happening, permitting delays, the fragmented carbon market, and this incentivized taxation, of course. These are stalling installments in investors. And the last that I can talk on the policy side is the Article 6, because this is opening the doors a lot. It is opening the doors for the foreign investment. It is for the claiming of the carbon credits to be, carbon emission to be used, aligned with the NDCs, plus the excess carbon credits that are being produced can be sold, traded with other countries. Today I was reading for Article 6.2, there has been a trading done between Norway company, which are working on BAC's project, and with Swedish companies, 6 of them. So this is promising, and this will be soon over here as well.
So we can conclude on an optimistic note that there is a great potential, and
Definitely.
we need to unlock potential, we need the right policies, we need to reduce the administrative burden, and no country can do it alone.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
and more innovative financial tools.
Thank you very much. Благодаря много на всички. Трябва да
Thank you all. We need to be careful with time because there are other panels after hours. So on my behalf, and I guess on your behalf, I would like to thank all participants. There are many questions that we didn't have the time to ask, but hopefully we'll meet again next year, or hopefully before that. Instruments are available, capital is available. What we need is political will, better coordination, and also a good capacity, because we are talking about a new investment model in terms of EU financing that we need to adapt to. The Eurozone is a condition that will help us unlock this potential, and then it is up to us to leverage these opportunities, join our efforts, and make the best possible use of these instruments. Thank you once again.